So listen, I got to tell you a story about clean air metals. It is a critical mineral story. There's four critical minerals in this deposit: platinum, palladium, copper, nickel, and there's a little bit gold and silver on the side to sweeten this up. I do believe that this has the potential to be the only primary platinum mine outside of South Africa. Yeah, and I'm going to try and get you enthused about that. We appreciate the fact that because there's only a South African platinum mining industry, there are not a lot of investors that really follow and understand the story. So I'm going to try and enlighten you. And I'm going to try it. I'll tell you just a little bit of a story to try and show you the potential here. The last time I presented at the Red Cloud Conference was back in 2017. I was the CEO of North American Palladium at that time, running one of the two only primary palladium mines in the world, which just happens to be 90 kilometers north of this project that I'll describe. And it was a turnaround story. It had been bankrupt essentially in 2015. But Red Cloud had invited Metals Focus from the UK, who do very detailed analysis on platinum, palladium, and other metals that are not as well known as, and palladium at that time was at just over $900, and he presented all the detailed data, uh, that basically proved, if you were listening to it, that palladium was going to hit $2,000, and the only thing that got wrong there is that it actually hit about 3,000, and when we did the study on this project 2 years ago, we used a 3-year trailing average price for palladium that was $2,200. So most investors missed that, right? They didn't pay attention to the story. The mechanics, the mathematics of why the price should go up were pretty clear. We ended up selling North American Palladium to Impala Platinum at the end of 2019 for almost $1 billion Canadian, from something that was near bankruptcy 5 years before. So that's the potential of the story. So I'm going to try and excite you about a platinum story here. Our cornerstone asset, the Thunder Bay North project, literally 45 minutes north of the city of Thunder Bay, northwestern Ontario. You can see from the inset map, we've got a paved provincial highway, cuts the corner of our claims, which are the green. We got a major power infrastructure, which is all hydropower up in that area. It cuts the other corner of the claim. We're near the city of Thunder Bay. So it's low-risk jurisdiction, and as you'll see, it's also very close to surface and is ultimately a very low-risk project. I'm going to start off by this territory that we're in is a recognized traditional territory for 3 First Nations. We're very proud of what we have accomplished so far with our First Nations groups. We started with a memorandum of understanding back in 2021 and did something unique. We issued warrants in our company to the First Nations, which generated a tremendous amount of interest. You know, unfortunately, with what's happened to the market and the share price, those warrants may not come into play, but it has set a precedent. We signed an exploration agreement in 2022, and so we do share some of the, basically any monies that qualify for flow-through as going in the ground for exploration. A small percentage goes off to the First Nations community. They continue to be very interested in future equity ownership, and it is something that we continue to explore with them, because I think in the age of reconciliation in Canada and some of the challenges that can be present in Ontario and Canada, that's one of the solutions and something we pursue. So very quickly, there's 2 conduits here. Chonolus is what the geologists like to call them. The Norilsk, Great Norilsk nickel, platinum, palladium deposits in Russia are Chonolith type deposits. The upper one, the current deposit, was an Australian company that did a lot of the work, Panoramic Resources, over a decade of drilling, 700 plus holes. It's a very well drilled deposit. We've done some additional drilling on that deposit. 2.5 kilometers away, and in different hands, some company called Rio Tinto had put 6 holes and discovered a high-grade zone. They weren't actually looking for platinum palladium, and in Rio Tinto terms, they felt this was not going to be a generational size deposit. It was sitting on the shelf. Panoramic had sort of retreated back to Australia with some financial problems of their own. And so Benton Resources and Stephen Stairs, a project generator up in Thunder Bay, pulled these assets together, spent some of his own money. He's a cornerstone investor in our company today. Recruited, Shell Company came together in 2020 and we formed Clean Air Metals, pulled these together, and we've been doing a fair amount of work on the deposit. You can see now the current resource as of June of last year, and this is all indicated, almost 14 million tons and about 2.4 million platinum equivalent ounces. So the other exciting thing about this deposit, it's highly grade variable. My old stomping grounds up north at North American Palladium was a very large monolithic ore body, very consistent grade. This is very, very different. And I won't read out the, well, I am going to read out some of the numbers. The escape south zone, 0.7 meters, not very thick, although the actual drilled intersection is much larger. Some very nice, 20 grams, 7.3 copper and nickel, and the very best hole. We did drill the escape deposit ourselves. The Beaver, the other one, we're talking 2.6 meters of almost 98 grams platinum palladium and 15% copper and nickel. So most of the deposit is net textured, as the geologists call it, but it makes massive sulfides, and that's a future vector for exploration. So again, just to show that there's some good thicknesses to these deposits that were intruded. They're all magmatic intrusions. So, 90 meters intersections at some very good combined grades over an escape. The current deposit has some really exciting grades and then gets more disseminated as you go deeper. It actually does subcrop under the lake. One of the reasons Panoramic struggled, I think, is they did do a technical study back in 2011 on the deposit, and we're taking an open pit approach, which got no traction with investors and certainly not with stakeholders. It's difficult to drain a lake in that part of the world these days. Can be done, but it's a challenge from a stakeholder perspective. So we've taken a high-grade underground selective mining approach from day one here. So I'm going to spend, if I had way more time, I'd spend more time on why is platinum important to the green energy story, because it's not well understood. Battery metals consume all the oxygen in these discussions these days. The actual transportation sector in its entirety, depending which numbers, is somewhere between 17 and 20% of the carbon issue in the world. The automobile sector that battery electric can help solve is only 10%. So you've got a huge other issue in the world of how do you solve the energy problem that battery electric isn't. And so just the heavy transportation, ships, airplanes. Hydrogen has a greater energy density, has to be compressed, greater energy density than jet fuel does. Steel mills, plants, the construction industry. So there's a huge potential demand, and there is a lot of activity actually in this space for hydrogen. Green hydrogen, there's all kinds of colors of hydrogen which have nothing to do with the color as it comes out of the ground. It's all about its environmental footprint. Green hydrogen is through electrolysis from green sources. So wind power, hydropower, and the beauty of wind and solar is all of this untapped potential. When a windmill flows here in Ontario, I think the latest number I saw, they're 13% effective because we already have a big grid, and so only 13% of the time when the wind blows do you actually use that energy. You can use 100% to generate green hydrogen. Simple high school experiment, put 2 nails in a beaker of water and hook it up to a battery, and oxygen comes off one side and hydrogen off the other. That's as simple as it is. Of course, on an industrial scale, it gets a little more complex. Platinum is the key element that coats the anode and the cathode, significantly improves the efficiency of the generation. I always use the analogy, very corrosion resistant. 20 years ago or more, the car industry changed the platinum coated spark plugs. When I was a young man, my first car, you change plugs every year. Now nobody even thinks about it. So very corrosion resistant. That's why platinum works here. In a hydrogen fuel cell, that membrane down the middle is largely a platinum-coated membrane. So huge potential demand. The note on the bottom, there's only 6 million ounces of primary mined palladium per year in the industry. Very small market, 75% of that from South Africa. Some risk there. Russia is another big producer, but only as a byproduct. Some risk there, perhaps. So that's the market scenario here. So what's the story for us moving forward? Look, like everybody else has talked, we slowed our activity last year. One of the last speakers talked about, managing money and cutting costs. We've done the same thing. We still have $6 million in the bank, so we're not in bad shape as some. So we got a very modest program. We have, I think, partly because of the history, we're only drilled down to 500 meters. We do have this escape fault that we now know actually connects and likely connects both deposits. They got the same genesis. And so it's untested down plunge. And we have some really, especially on the escape deposit, we have some good geophysical anomalies, mostly EM, that we're using from surface. And we definitely use downhole EM every time we drill a hole. And so we got a 2-kilometer strike length. These are magmatic. They do come from depth. They're intruded. Logic says they're at depth. Geophysics says there's something there. And so we're going to test that at the start of the summer with a modest drill program. And then with success comes the next issue as, well, then you want to do a lot of drilling. And we're going to wait until the markets, reward us better with raising money and a better share price, I think. So lots of potential here. Just very quickly, we have done lots of technical work. We are on our path to do a pre-feasibility study. This we deem to be a relatively project-ready-to-build project, but the prices have come off, especially the price of palladium, and it's changed the economics to somewhat of a break-even proposition today. But I won't go through it all, but we've done good engineering, mining, metallurgy. I'll touch on that. We've done in-house studies. So we've advanced quite a bit on that front. Metallurgy, again, I came from the North American Palladium project further north. It's been mining now for 30 years. The studies we've done, pretty standard flow sheet, crush, grind, float. No real nasties, a bit of talc to deal with, which we can deal with. And these recoveries really fit on the grade recovery curve that sort of matches what's up north as well. We've also done some early mining studies. Part of the reason they were taking an open pit approach in the early days is it does come close to surface. With the underground approach, really the best grade zones are only 70 meters vertical from surface. So within the first 4 to 5 months, we're going to be touching the ore body. So it's a very quick to get to low upfront capital project. And especially in the first 4 years or 5 years, depending on the production rate, we're going to produce significantly better grade than what the average grade is going through the mill, just 90 kilometers up the highway. So, and then from the underground access at current, we'll just carry on and pick up the escape zone. So a very basic, straightforward mining approach. It tends to dip at a typical mine ramp access grade, so it's pretty straightforward. So as I say, we know what the markets are. We think we've got a good project. When we did a scoping study a couple of years ago, we had a good rate of return, but now today, metal prices have fallen off. We did have, when we did the last resource restatement, last statement, there was a bit of a restatement on the current deposit, and we lost some ounces there. Net, we're down maybe 15% with the new resource on total ounces, but some of that also comes from, quite frankly, it's a lower price deck that went into that calculation versus 2 years ago. Sorry, I'm going to go back here. So, look, we look for opportunities. We're trying to use the term turning adversity to opportunity. There are a significant number of assets in northwestern Ontario that we're interested in, that are stranded, that aren't having money spent on them. And so we're going to take advantage of the situation and look at whether we can apply our expertise and our team to those. Look at all the dots. Some of those are just the right mineral environment. There are lots of historical showings. Some have been mined. Some have been just prospected. We've got over 100 on our list. This is prosperous ground. You see things like Talon, Eagle Mine on the other side of Lake Superior. The geologists would all like to mine the bottom of Lake Superior because there's supposed to be lots of minerals there. So, so it's really great ground, and we're changing our focus to include not only adding some value to Thunder Bay North, but seeing if we can build a portfolio of projects here. So we got a good team, very focused. We're a small, focused team at this stage, especially the First Nations. We consider that absolutely critical. $6 million, you know, kind of current cash position, you know, that's the focus. We're going to add value on Thunder Bay North in a responsible dollar manner. We're looking regionally. And we're going to continue to foster that relationship with the First Nations. So with that, we got about 2.5 minutes for questions.